Hey folks, this is Manuel from Steadybit. In this section of the Academy, we want to explain some important concepts and terms that you need to know to start with chaos engineering in Steadybit. The first part can best be explained by jumping into the Steadybit Reliability Hub, which you can access from the Steadybit website. The Steadybit Reliability Hub is the place for all the open source parts of Steadybit to integrate with your infrastructure, with your specific environment. We will cover this in more detail in later videos, but just that you are aware of, this is open source as well. So we are really looking forward to your upstream contributions to enrich the Steadybit Reliability Hub and share integrations into more technologies. Now, the first concept that we want to explain is targets. You can see we are listing here in the Steadybit Reliability Hub different targets. These are infrastructure components, so everything that you are using to build your systems and that you want to attack in a chaos engineering experiment. You can see that we are supporting different kinds of targets. It can be something in the Azure world, like for instance an Azure function, AWS, like ECS services and tasks. A target can also be a Kubernetes resource, an observability integration. So a target is every running infrastructure component that you need to have your system working as expected. Jumping into one example of a target, like the Kubernetes deployments, you can see that the reliability hub shortly explains how we are automatically discovering this specific target in your environment by using an extension. And we will cover the extension in the next video about the architecture. And also what kind of actions, also something we will explain in a second. Now let's jump for the first time into the Steadybit product. And in here you can see all the discovered targets at the dashboard. So you see that in my system, there are roughly 200 different targets discovered. These are Kubernetes resources, Datadog monitors, containers, Java applications, and so on. I can see a full overview of these targets by jumping into the Explorer, and I have a table of these targets over here. You see the different target types at the left-hand side coming from the open source extensions we have installed. You can see, for instance, containers or hosts and Kubernetes deployments like we discussed before. And at the right-hand side, you see all the actual Kubernetes deployments running in my system. We are not only discovering these infrastructure components, these targets, but also attributes belonging to that particular target. Like for instance, here at the gateway Kubernetes deployment, which I can open up in order to understand what kind of agent is connected to this particular target, but also information from my system, like for instance, on which host this deployment is currently deployed to. So where are the pods running? Also labels associated to the deployment, but also the actual pods are automatically discovered, as well as the namespace. So a lot of additional information that I can later on use in an experiment or an environment to really make it a great fit. And we will cover that later on in this video as well. But first of all, I want to introduce another concept, which is called an action. Also in the Steadybit Reliability Hub, we are listing all available actions coming from the open source extensions. And an action is basically a building block that I can use in my chaos engineering experiment. An action can be of different kinds, like an attack, which is injecting a fault into my system, like blocking the access to the DNS or blocking traffic, delaying traffic, stressing resources, something like that. An action can also be of kind check. A check is able to validate your assumptions about your system, whether the system is in a given state. This can be done by integrating with observability tools like Datadog, Prometheus, Grafana, AppDynamics, or something else. Or you can also use information coming from the target discovery. So for instance, validating the amount of Kubernetes pods that are currently running in your system. The next kind is the load test. Load test integrations are pretty nice to use chaos engineering in a pre-production environment and have some virtual users using your system. For that, you can integrate, for instance, with K6, Gatling, or K6 Cloud to have some traffic in your system and also validate whether the system is working as expected. Last but not least, we also have some other kind of actions like Kubernetes event logs or actions to mute monitors to avoid a real escalation whenever you're triggering an alert. These are covered in more detail in the experiment sections later on. Now, opening up one of the actions, like for instance, an attack to stress the CPU, you can see that we support different kind of stressing CPU attacks. Depending on the actual target that you want to attack, you can attack the CPU of a container, of a Linux or Windows host, or of an ECS task. And now jumping into the container stress CPU, you can see that we're documenting additional use cases, describe the parameters, and answer some frequently asked questions. Now jumping over into the Steadybit platform again to see how you can use actions. This time we're heading into the experiment section and opening up a specific experiment over here. This is our experiment editor, which we will cover later on in more detail. But basically it allows you to design an experiment. So thinking about a scenario that you want to check in your system by injecting a turbulent condition using an attack and validating your system state by using a check, as well as a load test to have some traffic in your pre-production environment. All the different actions are at the left-hand side, and you can drag and drop them to the right. Like for instance, that attack over here that we are using to block the traffic of containers. And now this integrates seamlessly with the concept of targets and targets discovery, because we can use the discovered attributes that we discussed earlier to really narrow down the attack to those containers which I want to attack. Like for instance, right now we are focusing on a specific cluster name and only attack a specific deployment in here. We can easily benefit from the automatic discovery by using one of the other suggested Kubernetes deployments, and this way increase the overall amount of containers that are under attack. I can also see a live preview of which containers will be affected, and additionally narrow it down again, for instance, to only attack targets belonging to a specific availability zone, just like this. And now I can also set up as an administrator so-called environments, which are narrowing down the overall accessible targets for my Steadybit users. And this way, let's say I am attacking the entire Kubernetes cluster, and you can see that we are attacking different namespaces in here, even ones from the kube system. And now I can switch into another environment, which my administrator has given me access to. And once I do that, you can see that the overall amount of targets is reduced, and I'm not longer attacking anything in a kube system namespace anymore. And this is the second great integration of targets, discovery, and how we make chaos engineering safe by using the discovery data to describe an environment. And an environment is per default consisting of everything that was discovered, but I can narrow it down to only include something in a specific Kubernetes cluster, or can customize this further by using the query language and specifying that my environment consists of everything belonging to a Kubernetes cluster, a specific RDS database, as well as some Datadog monitors. So that was already a lot of concepts and definitions. No worries, most of this will make more sense once you are starting to use Steadybit and you're looking into the next Academy videos. Also, whenever you want to read up some of the definitions, we have the concept section in the Steadybit docs, which also describe actions, discovery and targets, query language, and so on. Whenever you have questions while watching the Academy, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks for watching and take care.